Yeah, success. I guess for a very long time, success for me meant achievement. I measured success mainly by external milestones, right? There was like, okay, visibly, I've got this promotion, I got this validation, I have this thing, I've reached that goal, it's there. But beneath all of that, I think there was this desire. I think the felt sense of it was I wanted to be wanted. Come back to that. I think, right, to be seen, to be belong. And if I'm really honest with myself, I think success was, it was sometimes it was that language of my inner child to feel worthy.
Hi, I'm Allie Canton, and this is Practically on Purpose. It's a podcast for all the people who've done all the right things and are now looking to build a life of deeper meaning and purpose. For over 25 years, Glenn DeVore shaped strategy at some of the world's largest tech companies, work that unfolded alongside a growing inquiry into self, consciousness, and agency. A lifelong student of philosophy, systems thinking, quantum physics, psychology, and theology, his most recent inquiries have turned inward toward the patterns and perceptions that shape how we make meaning of our lives. Today, Glenn is a writer and poet whose work explores transition, identity, and the emotional architecture of becoming, drawing from Eastern mindfulness practices, Western philosophy, and both cognitive and physical sciences. His writing invites readers to slow down and attend more fully to what arises. He writes regularly at Falling Into Place and is currently serializing his first book, Light, a 5-day memoir into stillness. From strategy decks to Vipassana retreats, Glenn shares the moments that cracked him open and the writing practice that helped him reassemble with greater presence and purpose. Along the way, we explore the tension between agency and acceptance, the healing power of inner child work, and the life-changing practice of learning how to pause. Thank you so much for being here with me today. You have, I think, the wonderful honor of being my first friend from Substack, which is so cool because it's a platform that, I was mostly using as a consumer of newsletters. And it has just this amazing social capability and discovery capability. And I feel like we've just been on such similar paths and journeys together. So I'm glad that your wife, supported by the algorithm, brought the two of us together. I feel like everyone, right? There's a lot of gnashing of teeth and wringing of hands around the responsible use of AI. And I know that this is something that you actually just wrote about recently in your latest post, which we will talk about. But this to me feels like the perfect marriage of human and AI to bring people together. So this is also timely in light of your latest post, a confession, which just went up the day of this recording. So for folks who are unfamiliar with you and your journey, how do you describe what you do now?
What I do now. Yeah. Well, first of all, Allie, thanks for having me on here. I saw your post of looking for volunteers for this one, and I was excited to raise my hand. I remember finding you, yes, because of my wife. I know you two knew each other, but I think she saw your post on LinkedIn and said, "I'm doing this on Substack." She's like, "Oh, hey, look at this! Somebody doing something similar." And I was like, "Oh, it's okay." So I reached out, and no, wonderful connection. I just love everything you're doing, everything you're writing. It's just been so resonant.
The feeling is so mutual.
Thank you. Yeah, what do I do now? I really just been coming to grips with this one very just recently in the past few days, really. There's a really important book that I keep it by often. Transitions. It's my like little Bible by William Bridges. One of my favorite books. Jen read it many, many, many times. And she said, "You've got to read this book." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll put it on my to-do list. Yeah, so it's on my list. I'll read it someday." And eventually when I read it, I was like, "Why didn't you tell me to read this sooner?" It's like, seriously. Um, but he talks about three phases of a transition, right? Being the end, this liminal space in between, and then a new beginning. And I have always skipped over that liminal space. I don't like it. I'm like, no. I'm a strategist. I'll plan. I'll figure out what's next. And when that thing ends, I'm like, I've set up for the next thing. And I've done that throughout my life. And this time I've been very purposeful and being like, no, 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 I'm going to step into liminal space and just see what this not knowing is like. And
Mm.
it's been different for me. But just recently, to come back to your question, I've been doing a lot of writing as a verb, and
Yes.
now coming to grips with the noun of being a writer. And for a while, I didn't feel like I had the background, the skills, the ability to claim. I didn't go to school for like a fine arts degree, and
Mm-hmm.
I wondered if I deserved that title. It's like, oh, hold on, maybe that's something I can do in the future. I mean, I can work my way up to that. And the realization for me was, hold on, no, 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 no. It's like well, I've been a strategist for corporate for all my life, and doing what exactly? Oh, right, writing, writing.
Mm-hmm.
That realization came, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm a writer. So these days, I'm trying to get comfortable with saying that out loud and say I'm a writer. So
Yeah,
I've
let's see how many times you can say it during this interview. That would be fun. No,
exposure
it's
therapy.
good practice.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so when I read your post, one of the things that jumped out to me about it was actually reflecting on the nature and the limitations of language. So we'll just make it like a little meta right now. So writing about writers being being writers. And in so I speak Spanish as well. And one of the things that's interesting about the Spanish language as opposed to the English language is that in English we use nouns a lot. That is actually how we have a lot more nouns for things
Mm-hmm.
than they do in Spanish. So in Spanish, folks tend to use verbs a lot more. And it's interesting to even think that the question is, so what do you do? And you would maybe logically, like stepping back from like a linguistics perspective, think that there would be a verb that is the answer to that. So, oh, what do you do? Well, right now I'm writing, but everyone is looking to both provide and receive a noun in response to that. And the beauty of a noun is that it's very short, it's fast, but it's also kind of fixed. So I think that that means that sometimes we can be nervous about stepping from the verb to the noun. And it feels like it's a big jump for us to go from the verb of writing
Yeah.
to claiming the noun of writer. And tell me a little bit about why now? Why be a writer now? Like what feels comfortable
Why now?
to you about claiming that noun now?
Yeah, there's an urgency about that, and I'll touch on that. But first, I'll just say, I mean, I totally agree with your sentiment there. Now, verbs are easy. They're safe. They're like it's like tipping your toe in the water and doing something and be like, oh yeah, I can write, I can explore, I can
Mm-hmm.
do all these things. And here's what I can go do. But there's no commitment there, and I think that there's a strange identity attachment that also comes when you claim I am a something. I don't know. Aldous Huxley still rings in my ears, and I think of any sentence to start with "I am," and I'm like, oh yeah, there's some whole problems with just that first little bit of that sentence, especially when we think of non-duality, which I'm spending some
Mm.
time with. But yeah, come back to your point. Why now? Why this? Why now? A couple things. One is simply the process of it has felt so right to me while I'm doing it. If I wasn't married and didn't have any kids and wasn't a father, I probably found myself lost in just writing, and I would just be writing all the time. And it's it's one of those things that I feel like I could just keep doing and keep doing and keep doing, and maybe just forget to eat, sleep, the basics. So there's that part of it, which just feels compelling. The second piece, though, feels a bit more like an urgency. I started writing. The first part of this came from I had a Vipassana retreat earlier this year. It was the first time I've ever done that.
And just to pause, can you tell people what is a Vipassana retreat?
Yeah. So Vipassana is a specific type of meditation tradition. I'm speaking specifically of the Theravada tradition. So there's many different sects of the Buddhist traditions, but Theravada tradition has a Vipassana meditation, which is it's called insight meditation. So really, an insight can actually be a little bit confusing. People are like, oh, I'm going to get an insight about myself. I'm like, no, it's actually about
Yeah.
the insight about the present moment and what you're really noticing now. And it's not the content of the subject. It's more about it's the feeling, the felt sense of it. You get insights around impermanence. You get insights
Mm.
around what it means to have intention. Um, but it's a focusing meditation. It's something where usually they talk about an anchor. You create an anchor in your body. Maybe it's most often related to the breath, but it doesn't have to be. But mostly because just the breath is always there. It's always moving. It's something that's autonomic. You can just like
Mhm.
something to pay attention to. But you figure out where is it in your body that you feel it most. That's most present. You're like, oh, it's the tip of my nose. For me, it's the tip of my nose. I can feel the air coming in and going out. Other people, it's in their chest, it's in their belly, it's somewhere else. They can feel the expansion of it. And it's an anchor that you can come back to. And I say come back to because the mind will wander. The mind will always wander.
Sure does.
That even in the most practiced meditation teachers that have been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years, many ask questions like, does that ever go away? I'm like, go away, no. Our reactions to it change and we can see it differently.
The spaciousness is a little bit longer in between the thoughts. But yes, you're right. It's like it never, mind's nature is to have thoughts, and we kind of just need to figure out how to be with them and the space around them.
Yeah. And sometimes simply just noticing them and saying, oh, that's a thought. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
like, oh, that's
You just,
interesting.
okay. It dissolves once you notice that you're just thinking and go, oh, okay. All right. Back to the breath and come back.
So you were on this Vipassana retreat earlier this year, and it sounds like it was really a turning point for you.
It was. I scheduled it because I was curious about the silence that it presented, that it was like no talking, no reading, no devices, no nothing,
Mm,
just, and also it sounded nice to me in the sense of like no responsibilities, no need to feed your children, no need to feed yourself. Really, you just show up. You just no need
yeah,
to take care of anything. Just be. And I was curious about that. But everybody I talked to that had gone through one, they're like, oh yeah, it's hard. I mean, you can't talk. Your back hurts from sitting still for that long, and then your legs ache, and so I shouldn't do this. Like, no, 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 do it. Absolutely, it's wonderful. I'm
absolutely. You
like,
have to do it.
why? How? And they're like, well, I don't know. It's just great. I'm like, okay, now I'm curious, but I don't understand. So
Mm.
I scheduled it, and it ended up being such perfect timing because I'd quit my job recently, and it kind of extended a little bit longer than I expected. But the last day was a Friday before my Vipassana started on Sunday. And I was like,
Mm.
wow, this is. So I stepped into that being like, wow, I'm done with that. Wow, this is lightning.
Like,
This
what
is
do I do now? And it's great. You're like, oh, so I'm going to go to this retreat and
yeah,
like really step into the liminal space.
very much liminal space, and it was I thought it might be scary. I was a little bit when I told my son that I was going to do this. He's 10, and I said no talking, no nothing. And he's like, Dad, you are not going to make it. I'm like, what do you mean?
No.
And he's like, you love to talk. I'm like, you might be right. We'll see how it goes. So I was curious, but it was phenomenal. I mean, I think that I'm traditionally an introvert most of the time. I try to practice being an extrovert, but it's kind of like summer camp for introverts. It's like there's no expectation. Talk, you can't talk to
Yeah.
people. It's like, oh, okay, great, just show up. So yeah, there was a lot of profound moments right on the first day. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, that was a big one.
So, what was one of the first profound moments that you had
Man.
while you were
So
on the retreat?
yeah, funny story. I remember thinking after the first like arrival day, I wonder what the first thing will be in my mind when I wake up the next day. Like on the very first full day, I was like, that I showed up there. I was like, that, like, I find there's really importance in what we remember from prior things. Like, what do we recall? Especially the first thing when
Mm.
you wake up,
Hmm.
you're like, what does that mean? Oh, yeah, there's some profundity in that. And there were a lot of things that happened that first arrival day. One of the stories, and this is what came to mind, and it was so confusing to me. Have you heard of the term Vipassana romance? But like Vipassana romance is like it's this process in our mind. You're sitting there and maybe you see somebody's socks and you're like, ooh, cool socks. Ooh, yeah. And then you start to like, look how I'm meditating. They're just so mindful. And then maybe you get like involved in your head and you're like, what if I meet up with them after the retreat and it's going to be, yeah, we're going to hit it off. We're going to have like, maybe we'll get married and have a mindful wedding and have mindful kids. And then like, it all happens in seconds. And then you realize I'm still staring at this person's socks. And then you're like, wait,
Like, where did where did that come from?
back to the breath. And it was a funny joke that one of the teachers were saying. And I thought it was hilarious at the time. But that was the first thing I remembered when I woke up. And I was like, well, that's odd.
Hmm.
I am very happily married to the most wonderful woman in the entire world. So I don't have any Vipassana romance for anybody else. So I was like, what is that about? Like,
Mm.
what's that? Okay, just paying attention to it. And in one of the meditations, my mind wandered before I came back to the breath, and I had this realization that it wasn't that there was someone of desire. It was that I wanted to be the object of desire in that story.
Yeah, you're like, okay, so like,
I wanted to be I wanted to be wanted, and I didn't know what that was. I was like, oh right, thinking's happening. All right, back to the breath. Right. So I didn't try
yeah.
to get into it. But there was later that day, I was on a hike up in the hills around the grounds. And I did kind of ask myself in my head, like, what was all that about?
Yeah, what's that
Seriously.
about?
And it was like a voice, but it came back to me like instantaneously. And it was because you don't want me. You never have.
Mm.
It was brutal. It was like a scream. And it
Wow.
was clearly my inner child talking to me.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. So it was your own inner child. It wasn't like the voice of a parent or
No,
parent
it was
figure. It
me.
was
It
yourself.
wasn't, it
Wow.
wasn't, it was the realization that it wasn't me wanting to be wanted by others. It was me wanting to want myself,
Mm.
being willing to be with myself in my own life.
Mm.
And it was it was like a gut punch. Like when I was really young, I'll be vulnerable here, but like when I was really young, I got pretty brutally teased and made fun of. I say brutally because that was my perception of it. That was all me. That was my perception of what I put onto it. But I think that it wasn't the teasing. It was what I did about it. And I remember a moment, I was really young, but I remember telling myself, just to get past it, it's time to get over this. Grow up.
So
Stop it.
you wouldn't let yourself feel it at the time. It was sort of
I
like a
felt it
moving.
for a while, but I felt it too much and it was hurt too much. And I was like, I got to get over this. Like, stop it. And
Yeah.
it allowed me to get past it, but it allowed me to operate and scar over that. But the scarring also scarred over other things, I think. That was the ability to recognize joy in life, hear the music of life. And
Mm.
and I think that it was my inner child saying, you shut me down too much and I don't even know if you want me here. Like, why should
Oh,
I even try? And yeah, I was
that must
in
have
the middle
been
of the woods
devastating. Yeah.
crying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a profound moment for me in that retreat. That was like, I better listen. Okay.
Mm. And how did the retreat then relate to your writing journey? Is your
Mm.
writing journey now like you're now giving inner child space to express itself,
Yeah.
that you're now like listening and transmitting, or is there something? Yeah, I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, that's part of it. Certainly. There's a lot of lessons in there for me. I What I found was that when I got back from the retreat, people would ask me like, okay, how was it? And besides saying like, oh, it was good. Like, they're like, no, really, how was it? I'm like, it was it was ineffable. It's like waking up from a dream and you're like, that was an amazing dream. What was it about? I don't know. I don't know. And that's what instigated me to write. And I started being like, well, I don't want to lose this. So I'm just going to start trying to jot down some notes and I need to write
Mm.
this. And I started writing everything I could remember from like day to day to day. I was like, okay, arrival day, what happened? And I started taking notes. And as I started writing it, the writing just kept coming and it just kept coming and kept coming. And
Wow.
like 25,000 words later, I was like, well, this is a book. Okay. This is a book. Okay. This is a book.
I'm writing a book.
It's just a short book, but it's basically it's called Light. It's a 5-day memoir into stillness.
Mm.
And I had somebody ask me like, light, why is it light? I mean, you go into lightness, you go to dark, and you get all the things in between. I'm like, oh no, it's not light and dark. It's not light like as in like illuminating. It's light as in the felt sense of being light. Like I felt light. I felt
Lighter. Yeah.
lighter.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really the felt sense of that first Vipassana retreat. And it was phenomenal. And I had to write about it. So that's what instigated it. And then when I finished the book, I sent it to an editor to be like, I kind of curious, is this any like could I get some feedback? And just got that back recently. But in the meantime, I started a Substack. I was like, I got to write more. I want to write more. So I kept doing that
And
and
then you
have
maybe
enjoyed it.
have a couple more books that are, it sounds like at least two, but
Yeah,
probably many more that are percolating. Tell me a little bit about those.
many more. Well, when I got back from the retreat, my wife was very supportive. I mean, she spent 5 days by herself with the kids, taking care of the household and the children. I know how hard that is. She's away right now in New York, but we trade off from time to time.
Yeah.
And 5 days is a lot.
No, that's because you have three kids.
Three
She's got
kids,
a
pretty
thriving
young.
law practice. You have busy lives. Yeah.
It's a full life. It's a good life. I think what was it was so heartwarming though, and she's like, "You should do more of this." Like she was very supportive of like, "This is helping. This is a positive change. You should do more of this." And I saw one in particular retreat that was happening at the same place, and it had some of my favorite teachers, Joseph Goldstein, Kamala Masters, people that that I was like, "Well, this would be amazing." And then I noticed it's full. There's a wait list. I'm like, "Well, of course there is." Well, all right, I'll put my name on the wait list. I'll never get in, but
It's just,
whatever.
yeah.
Um, a week or two before the retreat, they sent me there's a spot open. I was like, oh wait, no, this is a 10-day. It's a 10-day retreat. I'm like, I can't take 10 days. There's no way Jen's gonna want that.
Yeah.
And I said, what should I do? And she's like, just do it. Just do it. I'm like, are you sure? She's like, just do it. I'm like,
Oh
oh,
man,
okay.
she's a rock star.
Oh my god, yeah. Yeah, and yeah, she survived 10 days. She said it was fine. But I went to this retreat just recently. I just got back, and this was more recent. And wow. Again, wow. Just a phenomenal experience. One that has probably inspired a second book. So that'll be another book. But
Mm-hmm.
it was the first book was this feeling light. I felt light. But also the other thing, people think about light, feeling lightness is like, oh, that sounds great. I want to feel light.
Yeah.
But light to me also means fleety, like going with the breeze. I mean, I was stepping into a liminal space of not knowing and being like, what are you doing now? I don't know. Verbing. I don't
Yeah.
know. No idea. And I didn't it was light. And this one did not feel that way.
Was it
And
heavier or
that's the name of the
yeah.
book. Yeah.
Heavy.
Heavy.
Uh-huh.
Heavy. It was heavy. It was very heavy. And in some hard ways, some really hard ways, but in also good ways that were grounding. And one of the things that came to me on that retreat on a hike was, you're a writer. I was like, oh, okay.
To go back to the start, like that is this journey of, leaving your big corporate job, which I want to talk about in a bit, stepping right into this first 5-day retreat, feeling light, feeling inspired to write and share, now stepping into a much more difficult and intense retreat actually led you to then say, no, 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 I am a writer now. And this is an identity that I need to step into and an identity that I need to fully claim as part of my journey and part of my healing.
Yeah. Yeah. And definitely the last one, a big part of healing. I feel that there is a major component of that. I think that when I asked myself if nobody ever read my writing and it was just into a vacuum, would it still be worth doing? And there's always one reader, and it's me. And reading what comes out of my writing helps me process it. It really helps me think about it differently. The subtitle of my Substack, Falling into Place, is Forget, Remember, Repeat. And it's this condition I have throughout all of my life, not necessarily real amnesia, but this concept of forgetting my oneness and connectedness to everything.
Yes.
And then, oh yeah, remembering it again, be like, oh, right. And I remember when I write. I remember when I write, and it helps bring me back rather than in those forgetting moments of life. So,
Yeah. Sometimes the there'll be spiritual books or things that we read, and uh, the really good stuff feels like a remembering, right? You're like,
Hmm.
yes, I don't have to be this way. There is another way of doing. I just forgot because the kids needed to get to school and I was trying to get ahead of my career or doing whatever the causes and conditions are. But yeah, I remember when I first started following you, I was like, I love that tagline because that really is the name of the game. So pulling back, I'd be curious, reflecting on your early career and some of the frameworks and things that we've all inherited. What did success mean to you back then, and how has that definition evolved?
Yeah, success. Um, in my prior life, I'd say, I guess for a very long time, success for me meant achievement. It was it was the what, like what we did, what we accomplished, what we learned along the way as we're doing things. It was it meant having a really clearly defined goal, right? Often for me, that was monetary. I was like, I'm gonna get this much money, do this much things, support the family in this ways, right? And then getting a really structured, strategic path toward reaching that goal, and then marching toward it. I measured success mainly by external milestones, right? There was like, okay, visibly, I've got this promotion, I got this validation, I have this thing, I've reached that goal, it's there. But beneath all of that, I think there was this desire. I think, like I mentioned this before, but this I think the felt sense of it was I wanted to be wanted. Come back to that. I think to be picked,
Mm-hmm.
right? To be seen, to be belong. And if I'm really honest with myself, I think success was it was sometimes it was that language of my inner child to feel worthy.
Yeah, we go and we go out there, we try to collect the gold stars and hope that if we accumulate enough, like it'll become some sort of intrinsic sense of self-worth,
Yeah.
which, when you say it out loud, you're like, of course it doesn't make sense, but it's really strong programming that I think so many of us developed from a young age. Maybe what happened is that like we didn't get some of the love or attention or affection that we really needed when we were young just for being us. So then we're
Hmm.
like, well, I'm going to get it because I get the praise when I got the A, or I get the praise when, I'm in the varsity team for whatever and I've been just named captain, or, and then it becomes about the jobs and the money and the this and the that. And in the meantime, it's almost like I get this image of building up like this big, yeah, I don't know, like weightlifter or something, but like there's no core, right? It's like completely hollow
Yeah.
inside. So then it's not shocking when the whole structure collapses.
I'll address the other part of your earlier question too, though, is how am I thinking about success now? Because I think that's a little bit different than where I used to think about it. But I think that for me, just to finish that, I think is that it's about fulfillment these days, not as much about the external things. I think it's more not about the what, but about the how. Really
Mm.
about how I'm showing up in every moment, and am I succeeding at that moment? Am I patient? Am I humble? Am I able to address that exact moment with the mentality that I want? Grace is probably the biggest one that I'm having a hard time with, but that's the one that I keep coming back to, is that ability to meet whatever arises with grace. I mean, grace for the moment, grace for the emotion that I'm feeling within it, allowing that thing to be whatever it is, my parenting, my frustration, or something that's happening in that moment, and grace to for the people that I'm encountering while I'm doing that. So I think that's the hardest part for me.
I loved how in your recent piece of confession, you talk about how you didn't think of yourself as a writer because you were writing for other people. And now you have this chance to start writing for yourself, which I think is really, really powerful. So, one of the things that I'm really curious about that I feel like you have become such a master at least describing, and I think maybe living in the ebb of knowing, you talk about the discomfort of not having clear answers. So, I imagine that a lot of people listening to this might be folks who are in moments of transition themselves or in that liminal space. I'd be curious to hear how you are navigating periods like now of uncertainty without defaulting to old patterns of control.
Man, that is a hard one. I think that that tension is one that is very real on a daily, moment to moment basis. Comes back to forget, remember, repeat. I think there's that tension definitely between myself and the other version of myself and what I feel like I want to become more of versus what I've been for so long. I think there's this version of me that's the planner, that's the strategist, that's the one who strives for certainty. And I think when I say certainty, I mean a sense of control, a sense of I got this. Like I know where we're going. I know what to do. Here's what we're going to do. And it's a knowing. And I realized recently, the past few months, that I have had this very strange relationship between the known and the unknown.
Hmm.
And uh, going forward, to me, it's about giving even footing to the unknown to sit with the known without my imposed hierarchy that's involved. Because
Because
I
usually it's like,
always,
right, known needs to control the unknown. Like,
yeah.
unknown is a problem.
Well, the only reason that the unknown exists in my mind originally was to become known. Once I know that it's unknown, I'm like, then great, now I can go know it. But I'm feeling now that there is this balance. It's more the yin and the yang and the dance between the two, that it's not necessarily that there's everything that needs to be. There's aspects of the world that what happens after we die? I, I'm actually pretty comfortable being like, I don't know. I
Mm,
really don't know. Like, that's the most honest thing I can say about that. I don't know. And the mystery of that can be almost just as important as the if we were to ever figure it out. Like,
mm,
just because we don't know it almost motivates us to think about the preciousness of this life and what do we do with it. And I think that there are some things in the world that maybe we're better off not
hmm.
knowing. And coming to grips with that, it's been a hard one for me. But that it's funny you bring up the ebb of knowing. That one was a weird poem for me. I came up with the very first two lines in that poem when I was in the shower. There was this concept of certainty. It was like, oh, certainty, you sweet singing siren, I hear you. It's calling me. This insistentness of I want to just know something. And that was the first line that I was like, okay, I gotta write a poem about this. So I started writing a poem, going back and forth in it, changing things. I knew how it would end because it was about certainty to begin with, and where way it would end would be like, no, the realization that it's not about certainty. It's about showing up with curiosity and being curious in every moment. And I find that that's my remembering is like if I can show up to every single moment and be like, ooh, I wonder how this will turn out. I don't know. Are my
Yeah.
kids going to blow up and fight with each other? I don't know. I'll find out. What's that going to look like?
Yeah.
Then it's interesting. Then I'm not controlling. Then I'm not trying to
Mm,
have some outcome that I need to have. And I can just be in the moment. And that's when things work, when they flow. But when I try to grasp onto that certainty, like, oh, it's going to turn out this way. I've got a vision in my head. We're going to go sit down at a nice dinner. We're going to go out. You're going to behave yourself. Like, that does not work.
no, that
That
doesn't
does,
work.
does never work. And so I wrote the poem and then I revised it and revised it and revised it. I'll always do this thing where I'll read it out loud and record myself and then listen to myself. And I listened to it and I was like, that poem is not what I thought that poem was about.
I know it's a great poem. No, folks who are listening to this, you should definitely check out, read, and or listen to the poem because at the end of the day, it really reads like a love letter. Like it's kind of it's funny that you wrote it in the shower, right? Because it ends up being a steamy love letter to uncertainty.
Yeah. Yeah. It
And
really
and it
is.
really does, it really shows that playful, curious attitude uh, that we all need to take when we're just trying not to default to patterns of control when things are starting to feel a little uncomfortable because they're uncertain, because they're blurry. I'd be curious, what are some of the other practices that you use to help keep yourself open and grounded when things are feeling really murky?
Yeah. There probably isn't just one or two of those. I think there's it's a rotating constellation of those patterns, those practices. I read a lot. I've always read a lot. I mean, I think writing for myself is new to me, but reading is not. I've read a great deal throughout my life from a very young age. Um, Sometimes I find myself wondering whether the thoughts that I have and the questions that I come up with are actually mine
Mm,
versus the echoes from the writers that I read and that I admire. And I think that that process, it still shapes me, and it's still there's a lot of authors. Pema Chodron is probably the one Abby Falik recommended to me that recently that I just has been
yeah,
typing
Pema's
quite a bit.
amazing.
Comfortable with Uncertainty has got to be one of my go-tos. David White, I think I've got, yeah, David White's, especially Constellations. I think David White just reminds me that wisdom can be unnamed. You don't have to have the noun.
Yes.
I mentioned William Bridges, certainly Transitions. The other one, just recently, and someone recommended this, somebody I met on Substack recommended this to me, but I can't believe I hadn't found him before, but Thomas Berry. And also the partner in crime on that one is Brian Swim. Brian Swim's a professor at the California Institute of Integral Studies. But Thomas Berry he's a was a priest. He passed away. But Brian Swim is a professor of cosmology. Both of their writing is just phenomenal. It reminds me to just see the wonder in the universe and all around us, in
Mm.
nature and everywhere. It's just, that one's a powerful one.
Yeah, I feel like Mary Oliver brings me there, well, like the wonder of nature
Yes.
and the universe. And whenever I'm feeling really tight or contracted, it's like I'll read one of her poems and I'm like, oh, zoom out and it will all be okay.
Yeah. She's got, I think it's in the poem Something or Sometimes, that's was Instructions for Life,
Hmm.
was pay attention, be astonished, and tell about it. It's like, yeah, good
And that's
advice.
great, like that's great advice for writers, right? Like that's really what we're trying to do. So, um, if if you were someone who is standing at the edge of change and feeling uncertain about their next step, what would you invite them to do? What's maybe like the first next thing that they should do?
My coach did this really interesting meditation with me, and it's where the name of my newsletter came from. It was a really simple, short meditation that he said, just close your eyes, let's just think about it. Like, and he wanted me to just complete a sentence. He's like, okay, so I'm gonna say a sentence, and then you just complete it for me. So maybe Allie, you try this. Just give me the end
Okay,
of
all
this
right,
sentence.
let's do it.
So, if I don't hold everything together,
Hmm. Then no one else is going to do it for me.
then no one else is going to do it for me. Awesome. Mine was very similar. Mine was, oh, everything falls apart.
Hmm.
And he said, okay, what if everything fell into place? It's like, so
I feel
yeah,
like
this
I
is
gotta
my
write
other
that down.
book that I keep coming back to. So
Without
obviously
a
Tao Te
Ching,
Ching
yeah.
is, I mean, there's even a line I think in it that's like doing nothing and everything falls into place. I was like, non-action. And I guess that's what I'd come back to your question is sometimes we feel that if we don't hold things together, if we don't keep track of things, if we don't get especially ourselves in relationship to people around us and our what we perceive as our own destiny, if I don't hold that together and figure it out, it's no one's going to do it for me. It's going to fall apart.
Yeah.
It's not going to work out. It's going to be terrible. And I think that's the hardest part to realize is that you you can step away and do nothing to take care of yourself and your mind and just take a breather and see what comes up for yourself. And
Mm.
it doesn't mean that you have to stay in that space forever, and you won't because we're humans. We can't. It's like meditation. You're like, okay, focus on the breath and be here. Like you could do that, but you're never going to be able to stay there 100% of the time. You're always going to wander off, and your mind's going to do something. So the fear that I would have is like, well, if I really let myself go and just be in the unknown, I'll stay there. I'm like, no, you won't. It's
I
impossible.
know. We sort of think, right? We're like, oh, yeah, well, if I don't follow the control narrative, then I'm just going to like be sucked into a black hole and I'll never be seen again.
Yeah,
It's going to be a mess.
exactly. Exactly. I think that the hardest truth for me that I've been trying to grapple with around this is this fact that I can still fully accept what is right now and still choose to shape what could be. And that
Mm.
paradox it used to seem impossible. I was like, well, how could you possibly be okay with what is and then still work on something that's better? It's like it's one or the other. No, it's not. You can you can be okay with what is and then continue to work forward. And I guess what I'm starting to understand is that acceptance and agency, they don't negate each other, right? They are, again, they're the yin yang that dance. And yeah, that's a hard one.
As someone who wrestles with these questions too, what I try to do when I think I'm a little bit like spiraling on it is what answer is going to get me through this day with the most joy and the most ease and
Yeah.
the most love
Yeah.
for the other folks who are navigating this weird little lab room that we've all been put in.
Yeah.
And I
I
think I'm
love
with
that.
you that acceptance and agency can go hand in hand, that we need to accept what is, and we can decide where do we want to try to go from here.
Absolutely. What's the direction we want to go in? I love what you just said there. And I actually, week before last, when I was on my last retreat, I learned a new Pali word that I hadn't known before.
Mm.
I've done a lot of reading in Theravada traditions of different Buddhism, but this word I didn't know and I hadn't come across it before. But it's, you may know it, so you know much more about Buddhism, but it's called Setna. It's pronounced Setna, but it's spelled Cetana. What it translates to most directly is volition or intention, but we so often think about intention kind of the way you just used it, which is like, oh, I want to go in this direction, right? Like it's almost like a goal. Like I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
want to be a writer. Okay, well then you're going to go do these things, right? That's not the intention that this word is referring to. This word is referring to something much more subtle and much more micro, in the sense that it's about the moment that precedes any thought, action, or non-action,
Ah.
all the time, every single moment. The best description somebody gave was you're walking towards a door, and there's a moment when your brain decides to use your muscles in your arm to reach your hand out towards that door handle.
Mm.
Why at that
Mm-hmm.
moment, not a second earlier? Why not a second too late? You're going to run into the door, or you're going to like, you're standing with your hand out for like too long. Like, why that moment? You made a decision at some point. Can you pay attention close enough to notice when you decide that? And it's, to me, free will is so complex in the sense of as soon as you throw it into those causes and conditions of the system's thinking and everything else in the chaos theory, like suddenly it's really out of your control. And even a thought in your head is suddenly firing off other synapses and then it's too late. Now it's got causes and conditions. So when I heard this word, I'm like, oh, maybe that's where free will is. If we can
Mm.
actually notice it. And if we it in the noticing, it creates a pause. It forces us, because if we notice, we go, oh, do I want to think that thought? Do I want to take that action? Do I want to not act? What's healthy? Oh,
Mm.
maybe we don't want to do that at every single door handle that we walk up to. That would probably be debilitating. But maybe the moments that matter, the moments that count, that we act like, can we decide to plant the seed that we want to plant?
Yes. It's the power of the pause, right? That there's so much potency, there's so much possibility within that moment. And I think that that's actually a nice way to even reframe for some of us who are taking a pause in between chapters of our lives, that it's not something to be afraid of. It's our own version of Setna, right? That we just need to embrace and be with the pause, and then we can kind of just redirect our intention and attention in the direction that we'd like to go.
Yeah. Well said. I think there's so much power in what we bring our attention to, because just by bringing your attention to something, you are pausing, and then you can decide what you want your intention to be. And I think that so often, certainly for myself, I don't, and when I don't pause, I let the reactive patterns just take their course, and I just act, just do whatever it is. And that that old me that I'm trying to not spend so much time with. And I think if I can find more moments of intentionality to say, yeah, I want to do that, then I feel like I'm setting that karmic wheel in the motion that I want it to be in, and that's it's hard to do.
Yeah. Well, Glenn, thank you so much. This was so beautiful. If people want to find you, where should they go?
Thanks. Falling into place is my current newsletter. So it's falling into dot place is the web address, and a lot more there. I'm also going to be working on that book that I mentioned. That one is also at a web address. It's light light in stillness.com. But that one's
Perfect.
just starting, so it's not really there yet. But I'll get there soon.
That's exciting. Encourage everyone to follow along on Glenn's journey. He really writes with such honesty, um, and such heart and vulnerability that I really just love reading your work, and I'm excited for others to follow along.
Well, thank you, Allie. This has been so much fun. I really enjoyed this conversation.